Funny thing about today, you probably thought it was just another blur, another ordinary stretch of hours slipping through your hands. But somewhere in the middle of all that noise, you did something different. Maybe it was small, maybe it was clumsy, maybe you didn't even notice it yourself. Yet it was enough to tilt the scales, enough to catch the eye of something greater than you, enough to make the universe pause and smirk, like it had been waiting for you to finally move the way you were meant to. And in that single moment, without you even realizing, you made God smile. Small actions can carry unseen weight. That's the trick most people never grasp. They wait for the grand stage, the loud applause, the thunderous moments where the whole world turns its head and notices them. But life doesn't work that way. The universe doesn't keep score the way humans do. Sometimes it's the tiniest gesture, the smallest step, the moment you thought was meaningless, that shifts the balance in ways you'll never fully understand. Think about it. You hold a door open for someone who was 1 second away from giving up on humanity. You say one kind word that silences a storm raging in someone else's head. You take a step forward on a day when your body and mind are screaming to stay down. To you, it feels like nothing. To someone else, to something greater, it might be everything. That's the hidden weight of small actions. They look insignificant on the surface, but they echo deeper than you can see. And the funny part is, you'll almost never know the full impact. You might never see how your smallest decision ricocheted into someone else's life. You might never realize how your stumble forward inspired someone who was watching you in silence. You might never hear the story of how your presence in the right moment rewrote the ending for someone else. But unseen doesn't mean unmeasured. Just because you can't see the ripple doesn't mean it didn't spread. The problem is, we're wired to dismiss the small. We call it weak, ordinary, forgettable. We idolize the big moves, the heroic leaps, the miracles that come with fireworks. But if you strip away the illusions, what you'll find is that all great shifts are built on the little ones. The skyscraper begins with a brick. The storm begins with a breeze. The transformation begins with a whisper of a choice. Small is never small. It only looks that way to impatient eyes. Sometimes the small action is just surviving. Getting up when your bones feel heavy. Smiling when your heart is fractured. Choosing not to quit when quitting feels easier than breathing. And maybe no one claps for that. Maybe no one writes your name in lights for that. But something higher notices. Something greater recognizes the weight. Because the struggle you hide, the battles you fight in silence, are heavier than any loud performance could ever be. There are moments when your smallest action aligns with something beyond yourself. You think it's just a step, just a word, just a breath. But it clicks into place like a puzzle piece the universe had been waiting for. That's when you shift the unseen scales. That's when heaven itself leans in and says, "There, that's it. That's what I wanted to see." It's not the size of the action. It's the timing, the intention, the raw truth behind it that carries the weight. And maybe that's why people miss it. They're too busy chasing the spotlight to realize the real power hides in the shadows. They want to be recognized by the crowd, when the only recognition that matters comes from something far higher. And the irony is, you often make the greatest impact on the days you feel the weakest, the days you think you've failed, the days you don't even notice what you've done. Because you're not supposed to notice. You're supposed to live it, raw and unpolished, without knowing how heavy your step really was. Small actions can carry unseen weight. And sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest thing you did today was enough to tilt the entire universe in your favor. Enough to make the heavens themselves lean back, grin, and whisper that you made God smile. The universe notices what others overlook. People are blind, distracted, wrapped up in their own noise, their own misery, their own little dramas. They don't see you dragging yourself through the day with broken pieces, held together by sheer will. They don't see the battles you fight in silence, the choices you make when no one is around to applaud. They look at the surface, the mask, the carefully rehearsed smile, and they assume that's all there is. But something greater watches differently. It peers beneath the layers, beneath the lies you tell the world, and it notices what everyone else dismisses. It notices the moments you rise from bed when your body feels like lead. It notices when you stay kind in a world that keeps spitting poison. It notices when you forgive, even though the weight of betrayal could have turned you bitter. It notices the cracks in your voice when you tell yourself you're fine, even as your heart bleeds behind your ribs. People may not clap, they may not thank you, they may not even care, but the universe does. And the funny part is, its applause doesn't sound like thunder. It sounds like alignment, like doors opening that you didn't even know existed. The overlooked moments are where the real story is written. Not in the staged victories, not in the polished trophies, not in the fake smiles posted online. The real story is in the way you keep moving when no one believes you can. It's in the way you choose light when darkness seems easier. It's in the way you whisper, "I'll try again," after another brutal fall. These are the scenes most people skip over because they don't sparkle. But the universe pays attention to what doesn't sparkle because that's where the truth lies. And here's the irony. What others overlook is often what matters most. You could win the crowd with a show, but if your soul is rotting, the universe sees that too. You could fool people with confidence, with power, with wealth, but none of it fools the higher eyes that watch beyond the surface. They aren't impressed by the glitter. They're impressed by the grit. By the fact that you kept standing when no one thought you would. By the fact that you chose honesty when lies would have been easier. By the fact that you walked away from comfort to chase something raw and painful but real. The overlooked details are the cracks that reveal your true shape. People may see weakness in them, but the universe sees proof. Proof that you're not pretending. Proof that you're fighting for something invisible. Proof that you are becoming more than what this world told you to settle for. every tear you swallowed, every scream you buried, every silent night where you chose to endure instead of collapse. They're recorded even if no one else will ever know the weight of them. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe you're not supposed to be noticed by the world. Maybe the whole point is that your strength lives in places too small for shallow eyes to appreciate. Maybe the point is that the universe notices because only the universe can truly understand the value of what you've endured. And maybe, just maybe, the reward doesn't come from applause down here, but from recognition above, where nothing is hidden, nothing is wasted, nothing is overlooked. The universe notices what others overlook. It notices you in the cracks, in the pain, in the silence. It notices when you keep choosing to stand. And while the world may pass by blind, something greater has already leaned in and marked you as seen. Significance is often hidden in ordinary moments. People expect the defining points of their lives to come with fireworks, with loud announcements, with the kind of drama you see in movies. But life doesn't play by that script. It hides the turning points in plain sight, wraps them in silence, disguises them as another boring Tuesday you thought would fade into nothing. The cruel joke is, you never realize how important a moment was until you're already living in its aftermath. It could be something as simple as a conversation you almost didn't have, a sentence muttered carelessly, a glance exchanged, a choice to go left instead of right. On the surface, it feels like nothing. You don't pause, you don't mark it in memory, you don't think twice. But weeks later, months later, years later, you'll trace your steps back and see it clearly. That was the moment that shifted everything. That was the hinge the entire door of your life swung on, and you didn't even notice. That's the trap of ordinary moments. They don't scream for attention. They whisper. They slide into your story unnoticed, while you're distracted, while you're complaining about how dull everything feels. You want big, obvious signs. Life prefers to give you subtle ones. And if you're too blind, too arrogant, too busy waiting for fireworks, you miss them. You miss the quiet significance of what's happening right under your nose. Sometimes, the moment is so small you almost laugh at it later. You sent a message you almost deleted. You held the door 1 second longer. You chose to walk outside when everything told you to stay in. Ordinary. Forgettable. Yet from that moment, an entire chain of events unravels. A person enters your life, a decision gets altered, a path opens that you never knew existed. The whole story bends, not because of some grand gesture, but because of something so small you thought it didn't matter. And maybe that's why the ordinary is so dangerous. Because it tricks you into believing it's meaningless. It convinces you that today doesn't matter, that your choices are too small to count, that your actions are too weak to carry weight. But the truth is, every day holds the potential to be the most important day. Every choice carries the seed of a shift that could rewrite everything. Ordinary is only ordinary until you realize what it was hiding. Think about the way you breathe through your routines, half asleep, half alive. You think nothing significant is happening. But maybe in the middle of that monotony, you're planting something invisible. Maybe today, when you thought no one noticed you, when you thought nothing mattered, was the day something greater was watching closer than ever. Maybe you made a choice in silence that sent ripples far beyond your understanding. The irony is, when people look back at their lives, it's rarely the big staged moments that define them. It's the hidden ones. The time they said yes when everything in them screamed no. The time they chose to endure instead of walk away. The time they reached out and touched another soul without realizing how much it mattered. These are the ordinary moments, the ones disguised as nothing, that end up meaning everything. And here's the cruel twist. You'll rarely recognize them in real time. You'll pass through them blind, dismissing them as just another blur. Only later, when the story has unfolded, will you see the fingerprints of destiny all over them. Only later will you realize the smile, the choice, the step. The second you almost forgot was the second that changed the entire trajectory of your life. Significance is often hidden in ordinary moments. The ones you rush through, the ones you ignore, the ones you treat like background noise. But one day you'll look back and you'll see that the universe doesn't waste moments. It hides power in the smallest places, waiting for you to discover just how much that forgettable second really meant. Divine recognition comes when least expected. People imagine it like a ceremony, like some spotlight shining down from the heavens at the exact moment they've rehearsed in their heads. They think they'll feel it, they'll know it, they'll be prepared for it. But that's not how it works. Recognition doesn't come when you're puffed up, waiting for applause. It slips in during the hours you're not even aware of yourself. When you're tired, when you're broken, when you're doing the right thing simply because it's right, not because someone is watching. That's when the higher gaze settles on you. When the quiet approval you didn't ask for drifts your way. It doesn't arrive wrapped in music or praise. It's subtle, disguised as nothing, the kind of thing you almost ignore. A stranger's gratitude, a chance opening, a shift in the atmosphere you can't quite explain. You don't stand there and think, "Ah, yes, this is it." No, you shrug it off. Joy in higher places reflects your hidden strength. Not the strength you parade around for everyone to see, not the rehearsed smiles or the polished speeches, but the kind that leaks through when you think nobody's paying attention. It's the resilience that comes out when you're crawling through the mud of your own life. It's the decision to get back up when gravity tells you to stay down. And here's the strange part. You don't even realize that these moments of quiet resistance echo upwards. That somewhere beyond your comprehension, joy sparks because you refuse to collapse. Think about it. The world measures strength by noise. Loud victories, trophies, headlines, applause. But what if that's not what counts? What if the real applause is silent, invisible, happening in places you'll never hear? Every time you endured humiliation, but didn't let it define you. Every time you stayed kind when cruelty would have been easier. Every time you carried pain without infecting others with it. You revealed a kind of strength that higher places smile at. Strength that isn't desperate for recognition. Strength that's real, because it exists without an audience. And that's where joy comes in, not yours but theirs. The joy of something greater looking at you, not because you dazzled the world, but because you survived the day without losing yourself. Because you chose integrity when deception would have been simpler. Because you kept your faith alive even when every circumstance tried to kill it. That's strength. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that whispers, the kind that endures, the kind that bends without breaking. That's the kind that radiates upwards. Hidden strength is always born in silence. You don't brag about it. You don't even call it strength. To you, it feels like struggle. It feels like weakness. It feels like dragging your body through another endless hour. But from another perspective, it's proof of something unshakable inside you. Proof that you are more than you think you are. Proof that even in your most fragile moments, there's steel running through your veins. That's what reflects upward, like light slipping through cracks, unnoticed by most, but impossible to hide from eyes that see beyond appearances. The irony is, the world often mocks you for that same strength. They call it stupidity, weakness, naivety. They laugh when you forgive instead of revenge, when you keep loving instead of hating, when you endure instead of quitting. They think you're losing. But above, it's seen differently. That quiet decision, mocked by men, is celebrated in silence elsewhere. Joy erupts because you chose differently, because you proved you're not just another reflection of this broken world, because you showed a strength that doesn't collapse under pressure. And maybe that's why you never feel it. Because if you did, if you could see the joy you've caused beyond your reach, you'd turn it into a performance. You'd fake it. You'd chase it for the reward. That's not how hidden strength works. It has to remain hidden, even from you. It has to feel ordinary, small, thankless. Only then does it remain pure. Only then does it carry the weight to ripple beyond what you can see. So, the next time you drag yourself forward, convinced you're failing, convinced no one sees, remember this strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's invisible, silent, ignored. But it's there, shaping you into something unbreakable. And though you don't see the reaction, joy rises in higher places because of it. Because even when you thought you had nothing left, you still had the one thing that mattered. The will to stand, even when everything told you to fall.